Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company, the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here today on the program, we got a lot to get into. We got a big topic. 35 minutes from now, Braden Gall will join us. I got to bust his ass for something that is, quite frankly, starting to piss me off a little bit. So Braden will be here, and I'll get on that ass. And we'll talk about the Titans in practice and Cam Ward and everything else. And we will kind of focus in on the general manager today, Mike Borgonzi. Got a thought there. Plus, I have the hottest Titans take/question. You know when I ask a question, but it's really more of a suggestion or it's more of a, I'm just saying, I have one of those today that we'll get into as well. And plus what they said about me and the Titans in New York on WFAN. We'll hit that as well. Again, Braden will join the program. Right now, my mind, I try to always be, super focused on any show that I'm hosting at that given moment. And I think I'm pretty good at that. My mind is so fucked right now because I am in this text conversation. Me, Caroline Fenton, Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar. Joe Rexrode apparently said today that Matthew Stafford is a game manager, to which everybody is trying to tell Joe what the definition of a game manager is. And Joe is like, I mean, he manages the game well. Right. But that's not what game manager means. So I hope Kaharski, and I know Kaharski's listening, I hope Kaharski busts his ass about this tomorrow of what is widely accepted. I do want to start off telling you about our presenting sponsor, which is Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They are fantastic. Hiller takes great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. I bought my first home in 2018. I've been a happy Hiller Club member ever since. That means I get my HVAC checked out. If I've got electrical issues, Hiller comes out, plumbing, you name it. The most important thing is the preventative maintenance that Hiller does with that Happy Hiller Club membership on your HVAC. You do not want to run the just daylights out of your HVAC and not know, hey, before it gets really hot, extreme heat warnings like we've been having, etc. Now your AC craps out. Now you have to go to a hotel. You don't want that. That's what the benefit of being a Happy Hiller Club member is. I know this. I use Hiller at my home. I absolutely love them. That is Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Happy you'll be here. The service is free. That's their guarantee. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, the question, if you've clicked the YouTube, you know what it is Mike Borgonzi on the hot seat, the general manager of the Titans? And I'm just going to tell you the answer. Yes, Mike Borgonzi is on the hot seat. And Mike Borgonzi is on the hot seat for three separate yet equally important reasons. Number one, you are always on the hot seat in the NFL. Number two, Amy Adams Strunk is one of the most impulsive, reactive owners in the NFL, and her pattern, which is now well established, is that she fires everyone after giving them the grace period of a season, with the exception of Jon Robinson, who she extended in January or February or whenever and fired him in December. Everybody else gets a grace year. Vrabel got the grace year where it was all J-Rob's fault. Rand Carthon got a promotion because it was all Vrabel's fault. Chad Brinker got a promotion because it was all Rand Carthon's fault. And Brian Callahan kept his job for a year. And then last year, those two got fired, and Borgonzi got the promotion, and now he's on the hot seat. And the third reason that he's on the hot seat, he is the one who picked Cam Ward. He is the one who didn't want Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or Mac Jones. And right now, regardless of whatever excuses you people tell yourselves or whatever excuses the Titans have probably told themselves, Sam Darnold has a Super Bowl ring, and Cam Ward went 3-14 last year, and according to PFF, was the 89th best quarterback out of 91 last week. Trust me, Amy saw the game, and I highly doubt she's happy about how the star pupil looked in her brand new Oiler-esque uniforms. And when it comes to Mike Borgonzi, I do think Mike Borgonzi should be on the hot seat, because the Cam Ward decision was always going to define his tenure once he decided to put all of his eggs in Cam's basket. In fact, let's go back to the night that they drafted Cam. This is Mike Borgonzi, and he is asked very good questions by the local media when it comes to, are you sure this is the guy? Are you sure you don't want to trade? What is it about this guy that makes him so special? You tell me if he's selling you on a future game manager or a future backup, or if he's selling you on the next Patrick Mahomes. Take a look.
How seriously did you consider some of the trade offers that you got for number one?
You know, I did want to listen, because I think you have to do your due diligence and listen. And I did that. But, you know, I think we came to a decision that, you know, we weren't going to move off that pick, and we wanted Cam.
What made you so convinced? I mean, the reports of the conversation was pretty high. What made you so convinced that you should pass that up and have him be the guy that you...
Well, I just think if you identify a franchise quarterback, there's really not a price that you can pay for that, in my mind.
Did those trade offers come before or after the 3-week period where you said, you know, before the draft, where you said you guys had made your mind up?
They came before, yeah, and after, you know, but it was multiple times we had some offers. I don't want to go into specifics of the teams and what the offers were, but, you know, we were approached multiple times for that pick.
It's no secret that when a GM picks a quarterback, they're almost always connected. Just kind of how convicted were you in connecting yourself to this quarterback, and I guess starting the clock on the window of you have the rookie quarterback, it's time to build?
Yeah, well, I don't think you do it unless you're convicted, and I felt like I was convicted.
Was he the number one player on the board?
He was.
You hear the comparisons with Patrick, obviously a player you know pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not exactly fair to compare him to someone like that, but,
Yeah.
but do you put any stock in that?
You know, some of the things I mentioned about instincts and spatial awareness when we studied Patrick coming out, I thought Cam showed that. Now, he's got a long way to become Patrick Mahomes, future Hall of Fame, with 3 Super Bowls right now. But there were certain traits, I think, that I saw, you know, that I've been around Patrick a long time. You know, his ability to process and the instincts kind of stood out to me.
Okay, if that's not selling everybody on the idea that I am convinced this guy is a franchise quarterback, that this guy is an elite quarterback, then I don't know what is. And while we've played cuts of Robert Saleh, and we were told that the reason Robert Saleh landed the Titans head coaching job was because he had some sort of incredible plan for Cam Ward that, again, according to the reporters that reported this, really was independent of any offensive coordinator, which, again, I still don't understand. How can a defensive coach who farms out the offense have a just great plan for a young quarterback that is independent of who the offensive coordinator is? That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's a different discussion. Robert Saleh was doing anything he could at that point in time to get the job. So when Robert Saleh got here, he has to say, well, we think Cam can be a franchise quarterback. Because if he walks into the interview and he says, yeah, I think he's Tyrod Taylor and I think Tyrod Taylor sucks, he's not getting the job. Because the Titans are going to make Cam Ward the quarterback because the guy calling the shots just told you all the great things about how he's a franchise quarterback and you couldn't offer him enough to trade off of it. And he reminds him of Patrick Mahomes and he's the best. But Mike Borgonzi didn't have to pick Cam Ward. Robert Saleh has to coach Cam Ward. In order to take the job, Robert Saleh had to tell the Titans what they wanted to hear. Just like Mike Vrabel told the Titans what they wanted to hear when it came to Mariota, who he would later bench and win without. Borgonzi picked Cam Ward. And not only did he pick Cam Ward, but on multiple times in opportunities he's had, he has planted the flag and told you he's a franchise quarterback. He's got Mahomes traits. He's got so much talent. His work ethic, his mentality, his desire, it's undeniable. He sold you. Cam Ward is going to be a franchise quarterback. And once again, the discussion around Cam Ward is what Blake Bedingfield brought up at paulkaharski.com, which is with Cam's ability and talent, and what I really mean by that is lack thereof, he needs to be more like Brock Purdy, a game manager, and less like Patrick Mahomes, whom he cannot be. And again, we all say this, while the other guy that they could have signed has a Super Bowl ring. This is why when people say, what's so bad about a game manager? I say, you can sign a game manager in free agency every year. Somebody yesterday tweeted me and said, well, what if he ends up like Jared Goff? And I'll tell you, if he ends up like Jared Goff, that's not good enough. Because every year you can go into free agency and you can sign a Jared Goff caliber quarterback. Sam Darnold is a Jared Goff caliber quarterback. Notice that while I have taken as many victory laps as you can possibly take on the Sam Darnold front, I've never sat here and said Sam Darnold is better than Josh Allen, or Sam Darnold is better than Joe Burrow, or Sam Darnold is up there with Lamar Jackson, or what I think Drake May's going to be, or I've never said that because I don't believe that. He's a game manager. He's a good game manager. He's a talented game manager. He's been through a lot. But he's not an elite quarterback. And the reason you picked Cam and you weren't interested in Sam Darnold and you weren't interested in Daniel Jones and you weren't interested in Mac Jones and you weren't interested in anybody was because Cam was the superstar that you told everybody you were drafting. And if you're going to tell us all the things that, again, he told us at that podium, you're probably telling Amy the same things. And if you told Amy for 2 years, this guy is the key to us rebuilding our team into a Super Bowl contender, to us packing the brand new stadium, for us to make you proud in your father's old uniforms with Warren Moon's old number. And then you watch him play and you realize that Curtis Rourke, who was taken in the 7th round, might actually be better than him. Yeah, that guy running your football team might not know what he's doing. And that's why I believe Mike Borgonzi is on the hot seat, and Mike Borgonzi should be on the hot seat. Again, you're always on the hot seat in the NFL. I've heard every NFL coach say this. I've heard every NFL executive say this. They always say you're always on the hot seat. And there is some truth behind that. There's a little bit of, hey, they're not going to turn around and fire Mike McDonald or Sean McVay if their seasons don't go as planned this year. But for the most part, you're always on the hot seat. We've seen coaches that are one and done, and I'm like, that guy's one and done? Wow. Mike Mularkey won a playoff game and got fired. J-Rob, and we'll get into him in a second, Jon Robinson won 61% of his games, went to the playoffs 3 years in a row, was sitting in first place, and he got fired by the same owner. So you're always on the hot seat in the NFL. And you're always on the hot seat when you work for Amy Adams Strunk, who has fired everybody, again, after giving them a grace year. And Mike Borgonzi had his grace year. They went 3-14 last year. And the first question at Borgonzi's postseason press conference I asked was, you didn't improve the team by a game last year. So what's the deal with? And remember, the lights went off, and Borgonzi was like, well, they were playing hard at the end of the year. Who gives a fuck? I mean, the only time I care about whether or not you play hard is if you're not playing hard. If you're playing hard and you're not winning, I don't give you bonus points for that. That excuse won't fly this year. And I will tell you that the Cam Ward performance that we saw Thursday night, that's not going to fly this year either. We saw a lot of that shit last year, which is why he was the lowest quarterback, according to ESPN, that qualified in total QBR. Cam Ward, according to PFF, was the third worst quarterback in the NFL, ahead of only Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, both of whom I don't think are very good. And now this year, he's the third worst quarterback. That's not going to fly. And it shouldn't fly. But I'm just going to tell you, and that's before I even mention the name Cordell Flott, because they spent a lot of money in free agency this past year, similarly to what they did with Rand Carthon, spending all that money in free agency. And in Cordell Flott's first test against these 49ers third-string quarterback, Curtis Rourke might be on their practice squad this year. Cordell Flott got absolutely obliterated. Mike Borgonzi should be on the hot seat. He hasn't done anything as a general manager outside of drafting a kick returner. He hasn't done anything that should make anybody think that he knows what he's doing. And while I don't think they should fire him today, because, again, what difference is that going to make? The player acquisition period, for the most part, is over. I absolutely think he planted his flag on Cam Ward when he turned down the trade, when Adam Schefter is on television saying multiple first-rounders were offered, when it is very public that the Titans had no interest in Sam Darnold. It was reported by Kaharski when he came back from the combine. I told you, Sam Darnold had interest in Tennessee. They had no interest. I told you, Mac Jones had interest in Tennessee. They had no interest. You should be on the line for that quarterback. And that quarterback, by year 2, should be better than 89th in the NFL. So, is Mike Borgonzi on the hot seat? Yes. Should Mike Borgonzi be on the hot seat? Yes. Because when you pick Cam Ward and you turn down Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold ends up with a Super Bowl ring and Cam Ward is the worst quarterback in the NFL, you have some explaining to do. And I know, last year it was all Callahan's fault. It was all that terrible roster that Borgonzi assembled. It was all that terrible roster's fault. But this year, Jared, we drafted Carnell Tate, and we signed Wandale Robinson, and we hired Brian Dable, and we are in contention. This year, you will see, Jared, you will. Yeah, and in one preseason game, the 49er third stringers put their foot up the Titans' ass. He should be on the hot seat. He is on the hot seat. And that's not a bad thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this. Let's say, and this is my hot take, this is my question, I know people are going to get all pissed off. But let's say Amy fires Borgonzi at the end of the year. And again, I think I've said, my expectations for this year, 4 wins. If they go 4-13 and Cam stinks the way he stunk Thursday night, the way he stunk last year, and this team is still dog shit, which it looks like right now they are, unless Cordell Flott happens to be Deion Sanders and was just taking the night off. If that's the case, they will fire Mike Borgonzi at the end of the year. And with all due respect to Robert Saleh, who I like, I think they should just go ahead and clean house. Let the next general manager pick his coach. Let the next general manager pick his quarterback and go from there. But if they do fire Mike Borgonzi, do you think, Amy, and this is my hot take, this is my hot question, do you think Amy would ever think about turning back to J-Rob? I'm serious about this. If Mike Borgonzi is not the guy, and his handpicked franchise quarterback, which is what he called Cam Ward the night he drafted him, if Mike Borgonzi is not the guy and Cam Ward is not your franchise quarterback, if you're Amy Adams Strunk, do you think to yourself, you know what? Things were pretty good when Jon Robinson was the general manager. Is there a scenario where she does a 180 and rehires J-Rob? George Steinbrenner used to do a 180 on Billy Martin all the time. We have seen teams that have fired coaches go back and rehire them. We have seen teams that have fired general managers go back and rehire them. It doesn't happen as often in the NFL as it does in some of the other sports like hockey or baseball. But guess what? Howie Roseman was essentially fired by the Philadelphia Eagles in favor of Chip Kelly, and then put back in charge, and he's won 2 Super Bowls since then. If you're Amy Adams Strunk, and last Thursday night was the foreshadowing event of what is to come for the 2026 Tennessee Titans, and you go 4-13, or you go 3-14 again, do you turn around and say, okay, Borgonzi's out, and I'm going to swallow my pride, and I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to hire the guy who I know can do the job because he did the job very well for the Tennessee Titans for a 6-year period? Because if you're Amy at this point, don't you know you can't hire a general manager? You tried with Rand Carthon. You tried with Chad Brinker. You tried with Mike Borgonzi. You can't hire a general manager. And you know your lieutenants, whether that's Bryce Wasserman or Burke Nihill or whomever that works for you. You know they don't know who to hire either. Because once again, they were there when you hired Rand Carthon. And they were a part of the committee when you hired Brian Callahan. And Burke Nihill was a big Chad Brinker guy, I guess, until he wasn't. So if you're Amy, you know, you don't want to admit it, but you know you can't hire a general manager. You know your lieutenants can't hire a general manager. There is no Floyd Reese to turn to like there was in 2015 when he pointed you in the direction of Jon Robinson. So if you're Amy, do you swallow the pride from the overreaction of firing him and A.J. Brown spanking the goalpost and say, well, when he was my general manager, we were 66-43, which equates to a .605 winning percentage. That's 61% of your games. Since J-Rob has been fired, and I'm not saying J-Rob didn't at least somewhat contribute to this problem, but he certainly, by this point, I mean, that was 4 years ago. By this point, you should have patched up some of the holes. The Titans are 12-44. That is a .214 winning percentage. So with J-Rob, you win 61% of your games. Without J-Rob, and that includes a year with the great Mike Vrabel as your coach, you win 21% of your games. The Titans have wasted the 33rd pick on a quarterback, and it looks like they've wasted the number 1 pick on a quarterback. J-Rob has been gone now for 4 seasons, and the team's leading sacker was drafted by Jon Robinson. The team's leading receiver last year, Chigakonkwo, was drafted by Jon Robinson. And the team's best player, Jeffrey Simmons, was also drafted by Jon Robinson. And you can bitch about whatever you want to bitch about when it comes to J-Rob. The Isaiah Wilson pick was a disaster. I thought he whiffed on Corey Davis, which doesn't get talked about enough because Davis became an okay player, but at 5 overall, he needed to be much better. Caleb Farley, terrible risk, terrible decision. I don't know what he was thinking. But you still won a lot of games with him as the general manager. You were in first place the day he got fired. And you ain't shit without him. Without Jon Robinson, the Tennessee Titans were 5-27 in 2014 and 2015. J-Rob shows up in 2016, and you immediately go 9-7. They made the playoffs in 4 of his 6 completed seasons. And in the 2 years that they didn't make the playoffs, with Robinson as the general manager, they were competing for the playoffs in December. This team has not had a meaningful October football game in 3 years. And I'm not saying J-Rob would be the best man for the job if it were to open at the end of the year, because I don't know every assistant general manager with every other team, and I really like Thomas Dimitrov and what he did for the Falcons, and he would be available, and there would be other guys out there, sure. But I do know that if J-Rob was the general manager, we would not be sitting here and asking ourselves if they used the number 1 overall pick on Tyrod Taylor. Because when J-Rob inherited the worst team in the NFL and he had the number 1 pick, he turned it into Jack Conklin, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, and Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry is going to the Hall of Fame. And when J-Rob went to hire a coach, he interviewed 3 guys. Steve Wilkes, which was the Rooney Rule interview, the great Mike Vrabel, and Matt LaFleur, who is considered one of the better coaches in the NFL, not Brian Callahan. So if you're Amy, are you so tired of you screwing it up and your lieutenant screwing it up that you just say, you know what? Let me go back to what I know worked. That's a question I have. Or is the pride too much? Is the pride too much of the, I fired him and I did it in the middle of the year when we were in first place, everybody around the league's jaw dropped and they said, wait a minute, they did what? And I looked like such an idiot. And I had local politicians losing their minds behind the scenes about how I could fire a general manager and then go send the coach out there to do the press conference. So I got bullied into a sit down with Teresa Walker, and I said what I said, and I stood my ground about how I had made my decision and I was moving on. And so I moved on, and I got too much pride to admit, yeah, I liked it more when I won 61% of my games than right now where I'm winning 21% of my games. Or, again, is it just going to be, nope, too much pride. I got too much pride, and I can't, nope. So, that's the hot take question I have, which is, if you're Amy, do you suck it up? If this year is as bad as Thursday night was, specifically for Cam, the hand-picked franchise quarterback of this 3-14 general manager. And then finally, we got to get to our friends at WFAN in New York, because boy, were they happy about what they saw on Thursday night. And the reason they were happy on WFAN was because they were playing my cuts. And they said, well, the Giants and the Jets, they play the Titans. This is from the Evan and Tiki show. And this is Sean Marash and Tiki Barber that were on WFAN reacting. And I kind of cut out my cuts on Flott and Ward because you know what I said about both of them. They both stunk on Thursday night. You saw it. This is what they said on WFAN in New York.
So we take it away to Jared Stillman, who hosts radio down in Tennessee. Stillman and Co. He's also a guy on Sirius XM as well. And his stuff pops up every once in a while, but like he's the Titan guy. When he talks about the Titans, he knows what's going on.
Right.
Here's his thoughts on his impressions on Cordell Flott. If we're panicking about the Giants cornerback room and you're thinking, should they have signed Cordell Flott, just understand what, if you had to pay him, what is now already being said in Tennessee. And on top of that, the Jets, week 1. The Titans paid Cordell Flott to be their cornerback 1. Garrett Wilson is going to see a lot of Cordell Flott in week 1. If that's how he looks right now, and we're talking about 4 weeks from now, man, Geno Smith better be delivering the football to Garrett Wilson all day long on Cordell Flott. That's how he looks.
I agree.
And that's how you win that football game, on top of course, trying to run the ball down their throat. The other way you win the football game is, of course, by beating up on the opposing quarterback, and dare I say doing something the Jets didn't do all year, which is, I don't know, get an interception.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do Titans fans feel about year 2 of Cam Ward? Let's take it back to Jared Stillman postgame on Cam Ward.
Cam was so bad tonight.
I mean, Tiki,
Yeah.
this sounds like a franchise after one preseason game that doesn't know what end is up. It's being led by Robert Saleh, who we all know, like we like Robert Saleh, the guy, but he wasn't a great head coach here.
They didn't even play against the 49ers starters.
Not versus starters, and a second-year quarterback, that you're waiting to take the next step, drafted first overall. I'm sorry. I know we've said it, but I know it's a preseason overreaction. I know that. But this is what happens when the games start to get played. You start to have more tangible evidence on stuff. These would be unacceptable losses by both the Jets in week 1 and the Giants in week 3.
So WFAN in New York, they're like, guys, this team sucks. And the Jets play them week 1, and the Giants play them week 3, and they would be unacceptable losses if the Jets lost to the Titans or the Giants lost to the Titans. What I think is hilarious about all of this is that I feel like Titan fans look at the Jets and the Giants the same way that the Jets and the Giants fans look at the Titans, which is we got to win those games, right? Because the Titans play better teams than the Jets and better teams than the Giants. So we got to win those games, because if we don't, and there's a part of me that just because the guy on WFAN says the Jets and the Giants have to win those games does not mean that the Jets and the Giants, are for sure going to win those games just because the guy said it. I don't even know what the spreads are right now on the Jets and the Giant games. I mean, the Jets, they've got Geno Smith at quarterback. You should win that game. You're playing at home. Aaron Glenn is a dope. You should beat the Jets. The Giants, that's going to be a Jackson Dart v. Cam Ward kind of game. And let's not kid ourselves. John Harbaugh is a better coach than Robert Saleh. And I think that the Giants probably have a better team, but who knows? If the Titans lose those 2 games, let's just say the New York people are right. If the Giants lose, if the Titans lose those 2 games to the Jets and the Giants, and I highly doubt they would beat the Eagles in between, that would be the 3rd year in a row that by week 3, we would know it's over. We would know. We would know it's over if the Titans start off 0-3. Or, again, I don't see how this would be possible, but even if they're 1-2 and they beat the Eagles and they lose to the Jets and Giants, don't we know it's over? They got to be 2-1 by the end of the first 3 games. The problem is, even though Geno Smith sucks, even though jury's out on Jackson Dart, I still think both guys are better than Curtis Rourke. And I saw the Titans starters get lit up by Curtis Rourke last week, which, again, concerns me. Again, just going through some of your reaction. I love how many people are like, Mike Borgonzi is not on the hot seat. Did you watch the game on Thursday? Did you see his hand-picked number 1 quarterback? And again, if you're wondering if he is the hand-picked number 1 quarterback, just listen to him.
How seriously did you consider some of the trade offers that you got for number 1?
I did want to listen, because I think you have to do your due diligence and listen. And I did that. But I think we came to a decision that, we weren't going to move off that pick, and we wanted Cam.
What made you so convinced? I mean, the reports of the compensation was pretty high. What made you so convinced that you should pass that up and have him be the guy that you.
Well, I just think if you identify a franchise quarterback, there's really not a price that you can pay for that, in my mind.
Those trade-offs.
There you go. He told you right there. Yeah, I mean, we had people call it, but I mean, we're not going to give up on Cam Ward. I mean, this is Cam Ward we're talking about here. Yeah. Last year, according to PFF, third worst quarterback. According to QBR, the worst quarterback. Week 1 of the preseason, according to PFF, the third worst quarterback out of 91. 89 of 91. Cam had a 27 grade. Will Levis, who was awful, had a 51 grade according to PFF. So, yeah, he's on the hot seat. Let's not kid ourselves. Not around here where everybody in the NFL is always on the hot seat and where everybody gets the grace period of a year. Callahan got a free year. Rand got a free year. Cam got a free year. Vrabel got a free year. Borgonzi got his free year last year. He is absolutely on the hot seat. So Braden Gall is going to join us. And the reason why I want Braden on this program today is because the football show is honestly, the titles are starting to piss me off. You know, the YouTube titles I'll see, and this is from the podcast, but here you go. Yesterday's football show podcast. The Titans offense rebounds. Yeah! Oh, yeah, they went out there against Cordell Flott. Ward and Titans offer mixed bag in preseason debut against the 49ers. Wrong. He sucked. They sucked. Well, they had a 95-yard touchdown. Right, when they ran the ball up the middle against third stringers. Other than that, Ward was 89 of 91 of anybody who passed. That's not a mixed bag. He stunk. Practice with the 49ers, and I love the thing underneath it. The vibes have been totally different this year for the Titans. Good second week for Cam and the offense. Pads are back. Cam's best day. You know, when it comes to the college stratosphere of how they do things, you know, all these college programs, they have their beat writers, but they're all the website guys. They're all the scout.com guys, the 247.com guys, the On3 guys, and you have to be pro team in order to get people to pay money to subscribe so that they can get insider info on who's taking an unofficial visit next weekend for the Ole Miss game. And I think that's bullshit, but it is what it is, and that's just a reality. There's never going to be a guy for On3 or 24/7 who consistently challenges the teams, with the exception of sometimes Matt Jones in Kentucky. When I read those headlines and I see the football show, which I love to watch, but I see, you know, on YouTube, great, Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons dominated in practice. I'm like, Braden, where do you get that shit from? He joins us now.
Is that a question?
Braden, what is the matter with you? I feel like you're trying out for 104.5 right now with all your Titans homerism of great mix. It was a mixed bag on Thursday night. No, it was not. They stunk.
Are you suggesting that I am a Homer media member?
It's starting to feel that way. Some of these titles. Titans offense rebounds. Yeah!
I mean, they did.
Yeah, throwing on Cordell Flott. I might rebound too.
Like all the problems in our broken-ass information environment, you got to listen to the show and the conversations. No one would ever accuse Paul Kaharski of being a homer to anything the Tennessee Titans have ever done, and no one will ever consider me to be a homer when I was working for the Preds radio network and the coach and the GM tried to fire me because I wouldn't do what they told me to do. Like calling me, you want to pick fights on the headlines, dude. It's totally good. Like you got to play the game on YouTube if you want to create sensational all caps headlines to try to like lure in the SEO traffic. Diana Rossini has 16 babies. Like you got to do all that. I get it. You play the game as well as anybody when it comes to that stuff.
No, I'm playing the game poorly. I'm telling you, I am playing the algorithm game poorly. And here's why. Because at this point of the year, people want to hear good things. Like people, I mean, that's why the post-game show got such a big reaction, because Cam and the Titans were so shitty that it was like, oh, Jared, he's been telling us this. We haven't wanted to listen to it because it hurts our feelings, but now we watched it, so now we got to go to it.
Well,
the other stuff, they want to hear the fanboy rah-rah, he's Caleb Williams talk.
That's I mean, if you listen to certain things that give you that, if you want to read Jim Wyatt, who I actually think, I think Jim Wyatt does as good a job as any team employee can ever possibly do, who is paid by the team and overseen by the general manager at like trying to be as honest as possible. I think Jim Wyatt does as good a job as anybody can do. But again, like what's hilarious is even you referencing the college stuff. Like I literally was fired by the guy you're talking about because I wouldn't give in to the Alabama thing. Because all the people on the Alabama message board, which Shannon Terry owns and who fired me, who runs all of the companies, right? He runs Rivals. He runs 24/7. He sold them both. He's running the same play again with On3. I literally wouldn't placate the Alabama message boards, and he got pissed at me for that. Like, it's just hilarious. You want to disagree with me on Cam Ward? Totally good. Let's have that talk. You want to disagree with how we title our headlines on YouTube without listening to the show? That's totally fine. I am totally comfortable with our analysis of what we see. I'm totally comfortable with Paul's work, with Nick Suss's work from the Tennessean. Nobody pulls any punches on that show. We are very honest about everything that we say. And I would argue, including your show, that ours is by far the best Titans show in the market, period. I think we are honest about it. We say things are good when they're good. We say things are bad when we're bad. If we change our own opinions on something, which I think is a totally lost art in this medium, when you see something new, and I think you've done this on Cardinal Tate, so I'll give you kudos for this too. But like when you see something new and new information comes to your mind, like you change your opinion. Like that's how the world works. That's called being an adult. And so I put our show up against anybody else's. And look, if you want to listen to the conversation that we had about the offense rebounding, it was like, how much does it matter? How much was it about the secondary being bad? How much was it about Cam being better? How much was it about the play calling, maybe putting Cam in a situation to make easier throws? They ran the ball a lot in practice on Monday and Saturday. So like that's the real conversation is like, it rebounded factually, but why and what does it mean? Like that's the real conversation.
So again, I'm more mad about the titles than I am the content. I do enjoy the football show program. I have to ask, do you think that they weren't that bad Thursday night? I mean, I think Thursday night
the secondary is worse than Cam Ward.
I think that Thursday night was a true 5-alarm fire. That given everything that the Titans have said about Cam Ward, the fact that it was all the coach's fault last year, it was all the terrible roster, we got him all these new guys, we got him these new coaches, you'll see, we got him our new uniforms, we unretired Warren Moon's number for him, and him with starters against backups was the 89th best quarterback out of 91, according to PFF. And you may hate PFF, and PFF I don't think is always right, but if he's 89, best case scenario is that, he was really 69, he was really third. I mean,
so do you know Jared,
horrendous, and that Thursday night was not a massive 5-alarm fire.
Do you guys know, I hope all you guys listening, Jared, do you guys know the commercials that you hear on, like, I don't know, maybe it's terrestrial radio. Have you ever heard the commercial where they're like, this is not a thing you call 911 for, right? Like they give an example, they do a little spiel about how it's like, this is not a thing.
I lost my socks. Don't call 911.
Don't call
911. I lost my feet. Call 911.
That's not an emergency. You know, if you're out of mustard, dude, you think it's a 5-alarm fire. So like I can't compete with you on that framework. Because no, I don't think one bad preseason game is a 5-alarm fire. A 5-alarm fire is when the house is burning down. And if they are 1-9, 1-10, 1-12 midway through December, we're going to have an actual 5-alarm fire. And one of my issues with people that are overreacting to one preseason game is when we actually do need to overreact to something, it makes the overreaction less valuable and less important to me. So I'm going to take a preseason game and I'm going to look at what actually happened. Cam Ward wasn't very good, but they had a long drive that he led. The rest of the offense around him was actually quite good. The running back room was better than I expected. The tight end room played very, very well in that game. The receiving core was consistent. The offensive line was excellent, and the running game was good. So the mixed bag was Cam Ward wasn't great, but the offense was pretty good. I don't care about the backups. I don't care about the second half. I don't care about any of that. The secondary was a major problem. And more importantly, you combine the game with the practice on Tuesday, and you have to look at it as a week. And you go, what happened? Well, the offensive line fought really hard and kind of got into some chippy battles on the practice on Tuesday and then played well. The secondary got cooked on Tuesday and got cooked on Thursday. That's a problem. That's a concern that we need to address. And so while Cam Ward didn't look good, the rest of the offense did. And so that's the mixed bag for me is one guy needs to be better. But actually, I think if you're a Titans fan, you could take a few positives from Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. I thought Daniel Bellinger played well. I thought Gunnar Helm played well. I thought Calvin Ridley looked okay. I thought Carnell Tate, while he didn't catch any passes, I think he's looked good all camp, so no concerns there. And the running game looked excellent.
Does any of that matter if the quarterback ends up sucking?
Well, again, I think sucking is like you got to be more nuanced than that. If Cam Ward is like, where was he on the tiers? Was he like 24 or something like that?
25, yeah.
Like if Cam Ward ends up the 25th best quarterback in the NFL, then things need to get better from there. Like that's not good enough. Like that's not good enough for the number one pick. That's not good enough long term. That's not good enough to win you a Super Bowl or compete for Super Bowls. That's not good enough. I believe Cam Ward was way more inexperienced football wise when he got the job, when he was drafted number one, than anyone realizes, than he'll ever admit, than we ever knew. I think his maturity and his wisdom as a human is much further along than most 22-year-olds.
This is like a lot of words. I just asked you, if the quarterback sucks, does it matter that Tony Pollard ran the ball well?
Sucks are great. Like sucks is not a word that I use to describe football players.
He sucked on Thursday, and you know it.
Yeah, I said he wasn't good, but I think you have to add the context. Again,
he was playing backups with starters.
One preseason game in a new system with a new coaching staff. And I just said, if he's doing the same things in the preseason game against the Niners, which a lot of the same things he did last year, which is the thing is moving too fast for me. I'm processing too fast. I held onto the ball too long. I tried to extend the play with my legs like I did in college. If he doesn't learn those from the mistakes of year one, and we are midway through the season and they cannot win games because he's making those mistakes, then we got a problem. But making mistakes against the Niners in a preseason game is not that big a deal, man. It's just not.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
I mean, it is a new system. Curtis Rourke hasn't played a game in 600 days.
Do you ever get tired of yelling?
No.
Does it ever?
Curtis, although the last couple of weeks when I had strep throat and I didn't know it, that was quite difficult.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, couple of thoughts here. Number one, my main topic today, I believe let's use the, if Cam is as bad as he was Thursday night and as bad as he was last year. So this is the assumption that we're making as we go through these hypotheticals. Should Borgonzi be fired at the end of the year? And will Borgonzi be fired at the end of the year if Cam is what he was Thursday night?
Man, I think that's a great question, but like always, the answers are complicated. I think the Titans got really unlucky that they were picking first overall that year. I think that draft class sucked, just in general. Not to use that word that you like to use, but I think the draft class didn't have a premier player in it at all. Cam Ward, we said it when he was drafted. Cam Ward would not have been ahead of Drake May, would not have been ahead of Caleb Williams.
But we know what the Giants offered. That was a good trade offer.
Sure, but what are you gonna Abdul Carter's not better. I'd rather have Cam Ward than Abdul Carter. So
would you rather have Cam Ward than Abdul Carter and the Giants' first rounder this year and the 2 second-round picks?
Yeah, I mean it's a great offer. You maybe at the end of the day we look back and go, man, you should have taken it. And if that's the case, then maybe that costs Mike Borgonzi his job. I don't think he's fired at the end of the year because he didn't pick the coach. He didn't pick Callahan, and so not picking Callahan I think gives him an extra year of, hey, you pick Saleh, this is your guy. So I think he's good this year. The question is sort of like, what should we do? How should we evaluate him? And I do think if you look at the team so far, you look at the players you should be most excited about, almost all of them were drafted by Mike Borgonzi. So I do think you have to look at the core nucleus of the team and you go Carnell Tate, Kevin Winston, You got to go down the list of all the guys. Like Marcus Harris is a starting player that never comes off the field.
But that's not a guy I should be the most excited about. He can't even make a tackle.
I'm just saying, if you're looking at the core building block pieces, it's Keldrick Falk, it's Carnell Tate, it's Anthony Hill, it's Kevin Winston. Femi has been a disappointment because he's been hurt, but I think he's had a better camp this year. Let's see what he looks like. I think if at the end of the year, near the end of the season, outside take the Cam conversation, because you've already said like this is what Cam is going to be, right? He's not going to be better. So that's a major problem. That's a major concern. But if you look at the rest of the roster and all of the draft picks that they've taken in the last 2 years are the ones that you're still talking about at the end of the year. Like Alec Ayumanner had a really good season. Jim DK still an all-pro special teamer. Gunnar Helm is a tight end #1. Kevin Winston is a starting safety. If you go down the list and you at the end of the year, you're looking at what is the core nucleus of this team. There's only 2 players under contract or 3 players under contract in the next 4 years. It's now, I guess now it's Skoronski. Now there's 4, but it's Cam Ward, Carnell Tate, Jeffrey Simmons, and Peter Skoronski. You don't have a nucleus after like 3 seasons. Well, if all those young players that they've drafted in the last 2 years are the nucleus that we're all talking about at the end of the year as being building block pieces, I think you got to use some nuance to say, man, look, Cam Ward was the best option. They took a shot at it. He's got to lie at the podium and say he's the best possible player we ever, like you got to say all that stuff. If it doesn't work out, that's bad, and that's a huge black mark on his resume. I think it's more about if the draft classes writ large and Robert Saleh, who is his handpicked guy.
Are we sure about that?
If all of that doesn't work, then you got to start talking about whether or not he should or should not get fired. I don't think he's fired at the end of the year, even if Cam Ward's bad.
I think if Cam Ward's bad, he is absolutely fired at the end of the year. This is Amy we're talking about. I think her track record as well, her pattern is well established. So here was my hot take question, because it's a question of would she do it, and I don't think she would. But let's say that the Titans go 4-13 this year, and that Cam Ward stinks, and that let's say it looks like it looked Thursday night. Cordell Flott stinks, and they're getting worked by Curtis Work. She will fire Mike Borgonzi, I believe, at the end of the year. My advice to her at that point would be to rehire J-Rob, because she cannot hire a general manager. She's tried, and she failed with Rand Carthon.
Hard agree with you on that one.
Promoted Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi. To be honest with you, I like Borgonzi, and I think Borgonzi is a more serious football guy than Rand was, because I don't think Rand did anything. And I think that he was a more serious football guy than Brinker, who I think was a worthless consultant. I think Chad Brinker was a con artist, if we're being honest here. So I think Borgonzi is more serious than those 2 bozos. But I think he's a pretty shitty general manager, and I don't agree with the way that he builds his football team. When J-Rob was the general manager, they won 61% of their games. They made the playoffs 4 out of 6 years. Without J-Rob, they have won 21% of their games since he's been gone. The 2 years before he was the general manager, you lived it, Braden. They were 5-27. So the one guy that she's hired that had even a modicum of success, at some point, if you're her, do you not look in the mirror and say, I can't do this the right way. My lieutenants can't do this the right way. So let me go get the one guy who I know can do the job, because he did the job effectively, way better than anybody else in my 10 years of doing this.
Do we have the J-Rob excuse of the day drop? Like, do you have one of those?
J-Rob excuses.
The only reason so I will admit that I actually think higher of J-Rob today than I did when he was fired. Like, I thought it was a little aggressive to move on from him. So I've kind of evolved on saying, man, it was better than you thought, right? With J-Rob. I think that's fair to say. I think the reason they won 21% of their games over the last whatever is that the last 4 first-round picks that J-Rob made were dogs, like total atrocious busts.
But do you think J-Rob, if he was the general manager, would have won 21% of his games?
And not busts in like a way. I think Mike Vrabel would still be the head coach, which is the best argument you can make for J-Rob, is that they wouldn't have got into this like Rand Carthon revolving door, no football people making decisions. That was ultimately the problem, is that you had J-Rob there to balance out Vrabel to some degree, and the 2 of them making football decisions was a really good marriage. Now, sometimes they missed, sometimes they made mistakes over here, or the draft wasn't good. Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, on and on and on. But I think at the end of the day, you don't have, if J-Rob's around, you don't have the complete like dysfunction of Rand Carthon. You don't probably hire Brian Callahan, and you probably don't have Chad Brinker around. And I do think the chaos of those swirling kind of lack of stability or whatever you want to call it, I think was clearly part of the problem. Now, I think Amy, hopefully, if you're a Titans fan, the thing you have to hope about Amy is that she has learned some of her lessons from this. She knows, like I've talked to Burke Nihill about this. He was in a position to make a bunch of football decisions in that period of time that we're talking about because there were no good football people in the building with football expertise and background. And I was like, well, do you like doing that? And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And he backed away. He did it for 4 months and then he was out. He was like, dude, this is not my area of expertise. I'm good at building stadiums. I'm good at, getting the Super Bowl to come to town. Like, that's what I need to be doing. And so they didn't have a football person making decisions. And that is where J-Rob was better and where I think Mike Borgonzi is significantly better. Is he good enough to win a Super Bowl? Is Robert Saleh good enough to win a Super Bowl? Is Cam Ward good enough to compete for playoff spots? We don't know any of those answers. We're going to have to wait and see. And that's just not people don't like hearing that. Like, oh, let's watch football games and then decide at the end of the season what we think about so-and-so player or coach or GM. And that's not, that doesn't get clicks right now in the middle of August.
So you're saying they shouldn't, if they fire Borgonzi at the end of the year?
You know this, dude. General managers don't get second jobs very often. It's just not a thing that happens in the NFL.
Just because it doesn't happen, again, I'm asking you should.
No. Like, I like J-Rob. I think his tenure was better than people think, but no.
So you think Amy and Burke can go find a better general manager than J-Rob?
I don't know about that. I think
because that's who would be doing the hiring.
I mean, I think they learned their lesson from Ran and Chad and hired a significantly better football person who is now in charge of football.
Who has won significantly the same amount of games that they were winning.
Again, he's had 1 year and didn't pick the coach, so I don't know what you want me to say to that. I'm not standing for Mike Borgonzi here. I'm just saying they have picked a good football person. He does seem to be doing a much better job than the previous two general managers. And
are you talking about him, or are you talking about J-Rob and Rand, or are you talking about Rand and
Chad?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're saying he was doing a better job than J-Rob,
J-Rob's first 6 years or whatever the numbers were are among the best job any general manager has done in the modern era. But he also had an atrocious 3 years of bad decisions. And
I agree. Fucking up draft picks usually should get a general manager fired. But I mean, the general manager is defined, in my opinion, by winning or losing games. Like,
and the
left tackle, his left tackle tore his ACL. What are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about I'm just saying that it wasn't just the draft pick. The draft picks are the most easy to kind of point to. But if you look at, and I don't want to hey,
we need a backup all-pro left tackle because if Taylor Lewan tears his ACL week 2, we want to make sure that we have somebody we can put in there to.
I mean, if you want to trace all of the Titans' problems back to a single moment, which is unfair and is not necessarily the right thing to do, but it can be a fun academic exercise. Jon Robinson not picking up Jack Conklin's 5th-year option is the beginning point of the downfall of the organization. That's the point, because then they were chasing that for a bunch of different drafts. And I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't have done it, but he didn't. Jack Conklin had a pretty good career, and then it's kind of petered off, and now he's not really a meaningful player.
And he got hurt a lot in Cleveland.
But again, I am saying that Jon Robinson had a much better tenure and was a much better GM than I think Titans fans remember, because the end had so many big questions. But he made mistakes. He signed bad free agents. Every GM has good and bad.
That's going to happen. Again, Howie Roseman is a great general manager. And in a 3-year period, he didn't have a first-round pick because he traded it away to go get Carson Wentz. He drafted Jalen Reagor and Andre Dillard in the first round in back-to-back years. So, to me, again, people are like, J-Rob stunk at the end. The day J-Rob was fired, they were in first place. First place.
Right, but
first place.
It's not just
second place, not third place.
Right, it's
not where they've been since they got rid of J-Rob. Last place, they were in first place. So when you say the end of J-Rob was just terrible, are you talking about the number 1 seed that they had? Because I didn't think that was terrible. Were you talking about the back-to-back
Yes,
AFC
Jared.
South titles they had?
No, yes,
because I
Jared,
didn't think that was terrible.
Yes, Jared. I think that winning divisions and being the one seed in the AFC is terrible.
Apparently,
that's clearly what I'm saying.
Amy seems to not.
No,
Amy
dude,
seems to think that's not good enough.
They have
and since then they've won 21% of their games.
You cannot have 4 entire draft classes. Now, one of these is Rams. You cannot have 4 entire draft classes gone off your roster within like 3 years and have it be a thing that sustains it. It just can't.
You know what's
it
crazy
can't
about
be like
J-Rob
that.
and his shitty drafts? Last year, the leading sacker of the Titans, and J-Rob been gone for 3 years. The leading sacker of the Titans last year was drafted by?
Was it Jihad Ward? No, Simmons.
No.
Simmons was J-Rob, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
the leading receiver was drafted by Jon Robinson. Chigakonkwo.
Oh, yeah.
So as much as, I mean, the quarterback who signed
That's
for the most
not
money
saying a
this
lot when you're-
offseason
It's not
was
saying a lot
Malik
when you're
Willis,
backup tight
who was
end.
drafted by Jon Robinson.
When you're backup
And he
tight end.
stunk. Look, I think the thing where Robinson really fucked up, and again, it's like Jimmy Johnson says, success has 1,000, authors and failures an orphan. I think where they really truly fucked up was the offensive line. And look, you're going to miss on picks. So let's say Isaiah Wilson had been a bust because he was off the reservation, which is a bad look, or he had gotten hurt or whatever. They had David Quessenberry at right tackle in 2021. They could have tagged him with an RFA tender and brought him back for 2022, and they did not. And that is a problem. Like, that is a minor transaction that they've just fucking let happen, and they should have never. And to this day, I can't believe what they were doing. At the same time, like, to me, the job of the general manager is to win or to lose. And when he was the general manager, they were winning. And whether or not you want to say, well, they were trending in the right direction or they were trending in the wrong direction, the way I look at it is they were 7-5 or 7-3 when they were coming home from Green Bay, and they got beat by 2 teams that were better than them with Joe Burrow at quarterback and the Eagles. And it was a bad look for J-Rob to have A.J. Brown have the kind of game that he had. It was what it was. But at the same time, that to me is not enough to fire somebody. Not when you're in first place. Not when you've been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. Not when you were just the number 1 seed. Not when you took over the worst team in the NFL after being irrelevant for a decade and immediately going 9-7. I'm not saying J-Rob would have pulled himself out of the roster problems that they had by having another 2019 draft or another 2016 draft or going out and signing the next Ben Jones or trading for the next Ryan Tannehill. I'm not saying that because I don't know. I just know that when he was the general manager, they won a lot of games. And since he's been fired,
Sure.
they've lost a lot of games.
I mean, like, I think it's more than if it's just 2 really great draft classes that we're giving him credit for. That I'm fine with that. I do think that he would have, because like we've had so many arguments about Corey Davis and Adoree Jackson and Rashaan Evans, and it's not just Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley. It's the Des Fitzpatrick thing that I'm sure you've screamed about for years. I mean, the running backs, Darrington Evans, and like there's so many mistakes. Monty Rice is of the world. Like, we can go on and on. I think Jon Robinson would have absolutely done a much better job than what was in place prior to Mike Borgonzi. I think that's unequivocal. Like, I don't think you can even debate it. If you think Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker would have been better than Jon Robinson, we've already seen it. It was not. So I think if you say, hey, had the Titans kept Jon Robinson, the team would be in a better situation. The roster would be better. The drafts would have been better. The free agency would have been better. The contract negotiations could have been better. All of that would have been better, and the team would have been better during those years that Rand and Chad were in charge. I 100% agree. Totally agree. But I think the real thing with J-Rob is about Vrabel to me. To me, it's about Vrabel. If you could have figured out a way to keep Vrabel in place, happy and working and moving forward, that is where I think Jon Robinson would have been worth keeping around.
Well, think about this.
Like,
J-Rob
it's about
ran one
it's
coaching
all about
search.
Vrabel for me.
J-Rob ran one coaching search. They interviewed Steve Wilkes, which was their Rooney Rule interview. They were never going to hire him. And the other 2 guys, Matt LaFleur and Mike Vrabel, are considered top 3rd NFL coaches.
And he got both of them.
And to that point, he got both of them, though they obviously did not play well together in the sandbox with 2 very different and contrasting personalities.
Very much so.
So here's what I'm going to ask you. This is the last thing. Cam stunk last year, again, statistically speaking. Worst QBR in the NFL. He stunk on Thursday night. Again, according to PFF, he was 89 of 91. Do you believe that against the Seahawks in the practices and in the game on Sunday that we will see a different Cam Ward, or do you think we will see more of the same? And this season, do you think that we will see a different Cam Ward, or do you think it will be more of the same?
I mean, this is not what you want to hear, but I don't have any clue, man. Nobody does. You don't. I don't. We can guess. I think that Seattle and the Bears and San Francisco are three very good defenses. I just need real games to know, because I think Cam, you can't really evaluate anybody without it being in real situations and real games with real things on the line, with a real game check and a win-loss column. And I'm not trying to cop out with your answer here. Like, if history is the greatest indicator of the future, then he's going to have some pocket presence issues. He's going to have to work on his footwork. He might dirt one to Wan'Dale Robinson on the side. Like, there's going to have to be some progress in the small things that he's working on. But I'm not even, if he has a bad game, I'm still not saying that he's going to have a bad year, because there's just no way to connect bad preseasons with what's going to happen in the future. Is it okay for Titans fans to ask questions about the future of the organization with Cam Ward? I think that's totally fair. I got no problem with people saying, hey, I'm concerned about the quarterback position moving forward. Like, that's fine. And what's really ironic about this entire conversation, and you taking me on with my Cam Ward headlines, is I was probably one of the only guys with you that at the time of the draft was like, I don't know if this is the right thing to do.
I think there were a lot of people that were like that. I mean, Gentry Estes wrote a column. Gentry Estes wrote a column in the Tennessean saying they should sign Sam Darnold. Rex Road and Robbie both had that opinion that they should go after Darnold and not overdraft Cam. I mean, I felt like at the time I think
everybody would have been an overdraft, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean that's
unfortunately.
But it's not like they were locked into that spot and couldn't get out, because we know Adam Schefter was sitting there right then saying, "Hey, the Giants were willing," and the Giants were willing to move heaven and earth, because I think Joe Shane and Brian Dable thought they were on the hot seat and thought, well, we struck out on Matthew Stafford. We struck out. There was another quarterback I think they went after that they ended up not being able to get. We struck out on Stafford. So let's mortgage these picks, because we're going to be fired anyways. Yeah. So mortgage these picks to go up there and get them. And somehow Shane has been able to keep his job. Braden Gall.
Can I do one real quick thing? I know we're going late here, but this is ultimately why I think it's okay to be critical of Cam, but also give him time. And that is, again, he ran a triple option offense. It is clear that he was not an evolved NFL play reader, diagnostic guy when he got to the NFL. He's got an arm, he's got the work ethic, he's got the right focus, he's got all these things, but it was very clear that he was behind in football IQ, if that's the right way to describe it. And so it's going to take time for him to get to that point. He may never get there, and he may be moved on from, and you may have to draft another quarterback. But you have to give him time, because it is clear that he was seeing things on defense last year that he has never seen before. And anything he saw at Miami in the ACC was lower than regular college football. Washington State was not. Incarnate Word was definitely not. And he never even threw the ball much in high school. I think you got to give him some time. It doesn't mean he's going to be good, but I do think you got to give him some time. So,
my biggest problem is I just don't think Cam's accurate with the football at all.
Maybe not.
And I also think that Cam, I think he thinks it's easier than it actually is, or thought it was going to be easier, and just thinks I'll just say that I'm going to be great and I'll be great. And it's
I think he's wired though. This is what I think is really interesting about him. I'm going to use, because I've compared him to Baker Mayfield. That's who I think he is. I think he plays like Baker Mayfield. I think he acts like Baker Mayfield. I think he plays the game with similar skills and height, and he's not as fast as Baker Mayfield, but I think he plays the game very similarly. Baker Mayfield was incredibly immature when he was drafted emotionally and mentally at number 1 overall, but had played a ton of high-level football. So very mature football player, very immature human being. Cam is the opposite. Very immature football player, very, very mature 21, 22-year-old. So I think he is wired in a way that I think you can, if you want to believe in him, he's wired in a way to have some confidence that he can fix the things that you're talking about. Because I don't think he says those things without a lot of purpose and meaning behind him. Doesn't mean he's going to be good, but I think he's a very thoughtful kind of old soul. He gets that from his father. I think he's going to put the work in to be good. It doesn't mean he will be good, but I think
he talks shit to hide himself.
I think he puts the work in.
I also think
Fred Warner said it last week. I thought it was a great insight from PK, who got this question planted, and we talked about it on a football show. Fred Warner was asked, hey, what do you think of Cam Ward running his mouth all the time? And he goes, I don't know if it's going to be good or bad for him. it can be good for some players and it can be bad for other players. And I thought that was a really insightful kind of linebacker way to look at it. Baker Mayfield, again, going back to Baker Mayfield, you don't talk shit to Baker Mayfield. That gets him going. You got to be quiet with Baker Mayfield, right? He likes to talk. He likes to do that. That makes him better. We don't know if talking like he does is going to make Cam better or if it's going to put a target on his back and make him distracted. We just don't know yet. So
just remember what Joe Morgan used to say. You can talk the talk if you can walk the walk. And that's where I am with Cam of like, I don't even know if you can throw the ball where it's supposed to go. So I don't need to hear you talk all that. I think sometimes we get too caught up into like Michael Jordan talked a lot of trash. Right. And Michael Jordan also was really, really good.
Yeah. That's why I go with Baker. That's why I go with Baker Mayfield. He's just like, he's like a good quarterback, you know? That's
I think Baker's more accurate than Cam. Baker won the Heisman in college. Baker went to the playoff in college, and Cam went to the Pop-Tart Bowl. Didn't even get to the ACC championship.
He set every ACC passing record ever in a single season.
Whoa. Braden Gall joining us, 440 Sports, a football show. You and Sus Thursday?
Friday afternoon after the joint practice.
Oh, nice. Nice.
After your show.
I am not, by the way.
Coming on after Jared. Follow us after Stillman and Company.
I am not Friday going to be able to go to the practices. I'm hosting Stephen A's radio show on Friday. And, you know, anytime you get the opportunity to step in place for the man who got the thumbs down award from the, what was it? The National
Stephen
Association
A. Smith.
of
Have you ever
Journalists?
met? I met him at SiriusXM Studios a long time ago. He's like 6'2". He's like a big dude.
I like Stephen A.
Yeah,
I've always had good interactions with Stephen A. Braden, thank you, sir. I will say this when it comes to the J-Rob chatter. By the way, boy, a lot of people wanted to weigh in on that, which I do think is funny. Again, everyone's talking about, well, he drafted this guy or he signed that guy, and they're fair criticisms. Like, they are fair criticisms to say, J-Rob fucked this up, J-Rob fucked that up, J-Rob fucked a lot of things up. But the job of the general manager is to win. That's the job. And when J-Rob wasn't the general manager, they were bad. In 2015, 2014, they were 5-27. He takes the job. They win 61% of their games. They make the playoffs 4 out of 6 years, including the other 2 years that they missed where they were competing in either the second to last week for the playoffs or the last game of the season on Sunday Night Football for the playoffs. The last 2 years, the season has been over by week 3 when Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers absolutely butt-fucked the Titans at Nissan Stadium, or when Cam Ward threw a pick 6 on the first drive of the game against Indy. All of you people that are saying the J-Rob excuse of the day, I'm not making any excuses. I'm just telling you the facts. The winning and the losing, that is a statistic. That is not Jared begging you to say, well, it was somebody else's fault. That's an excuse. And we've seen Amy and Burke Nihill try to hire football people over the last 4 years. It's been a disaster. So I'm just saying, if Thursday night was indicative of what this season is going to become, and I am very afraid that it is, my advice to Amy at the end of the year would be stop trying to find Vince Lombardi the third. Just go bring J-Rob back. That's the only guy you know that knows how to do the job. That's it for us. Like and subscribe and tell your friends, Stillman & Company. We'll be back tomorrow. That's right, 2:00.